are back in full mode. No more wedding prep, no more wedding stuff. We are back, newlyweds. I'm with my best mate and my brother Leon. Good afternoon, sir.
This is your honeymoon. Doing a
Ah,
podcast.
welcome back. We are officially back for 2026 in full Zoom effect. Now, boy oh boy, do we have a topic for you that Leon actually came up with this one. We are calling it Anthony Albanese's second term to date.
I
Now, the
didn't
second
exactly come up. Hang on. I didn't exactly come up with this. You already had the idea. You already had the questions laid out. You just didn't
that
have a
is your
title. I just gave you
title.
the title. So there you go. You took it
Okay,
from there.
right, let's go. Okay, question one. Since the Bondi shooting or incident, coalition support is at 30.5%, up 3% since the week of December between the 8th and the 14th, 2025, just ahead of ALP on 30%, down 0.5. What will this mean for Anthony Albanese, and can he crawl his way back up?
I have no doubt that he can crawl his way back up. But I think the really interesting thing is the first couple of months in his terms, in his first term, and one of the first big things that he did was try to introduce the Indigenous voice to Parliament, which went down like a ton of bricks. And his his first major issue, which is unfortunately is the Bondi shooting, which obviously thoughts and prayers with everybody caught up in that. They're trying to introduce legislation regarding guns buyback and also the what do you call it? What's the thing that they're trying to bring in at the moment?
A bill?
A hate speech kind of, it's kind of a hate speech bill where you could actually get arrested and stuff like that now for hate speech.
Yep.
But what they've done is they've tried to combine both into one bill, and no party is supporting this at the moment. The only people that are supporting it right now is the ALP,
Yeah.
which is Anthony Albanese's party. Now, um, not like that means the LNP are not supporting it. The Greens are not supporting it. One Nation is not
Of
supporting it
course.
either. So they're going to have to do deals here. Otherwise they're going to have to split this bill. But no, I think anyway. I'm getting us a bit sidetracked here. But Anthony Albanese can crawl his way back up, but he needs to address this situation at the moment. Like when there's something happening, it seems like he's nowhere to be found.
Hmm.
That's the problem, and they made a big deal out of it, out of the previous leaders not being around when there's a problem when something like this is happening, and now he's getting caught in this situation too, where he was nowhere to be seen straight away. You needed to be on the scene straight away,
Hmm.
and he wasn't. And when they finally decided to go there, they were met with a whole bunch of disrespect and stuff like that from the crowd, which, quite frankly, was unacceptable either. No matter what you think of these parties, you don't go berating them and stuff like that. I know it's a tense situation at the moment, but whether or not you're caught up in this or not, whether or not you have views or whatever, you can't go verbaling, politicians or anything like that because they're just trying to do their job. But I
Yeah.
think he didn't handle this well, and I think he needs to spend this term learning how to handle things better than what we've seen so far.
I mean, I know we're going off topic here, but let's break this down. For example, when the Bondi incident happened, and I'm so sorry for the families that have suffered. My thoughts and prayers are with them. Um, he came down with his bodyguards and he laid flowers, and then he left. I mean, the fact that sure people were booing him on the way down, but what Anthony Albanese I think should have done is stayed there no matter what the boos are and just talk to people and apologized and said, "Look, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what happened." I think he, on his first election promise, he said, when the going gets tough, I'll be here. I'm not going to just do some photo op. I'm not going to run away when it gets harder.
And what
But
happened here?
he's
There was a
running
photo op. He
away.
immediately
Yeah.
turned it into a photo op.
Yeah. And
He
he
should never
has,
have done that. He should have stuck around to the bitter end that day. That was a bad look.
that's what I'm saying. He's what leads it to the next question is if we had, I mean, imagine this, if we had a federal election now, Will Anthony Albanese return to government with maybe a decreased majority?
He'll more than likely would be returned to he will be returned to office, but he'll lose a lot of skin for that, proverbial skin for that, especially after the way that he handled the Bondi situation. And if I'm not mistaken, because there was polls that came in and out shortly after this happened, the first poll that came out this year was by Demos AU, and this is what it had. It had the ALP. This is, by the way, to the individual parties polling. It had the ALP at 29%, which was down 4%. It had the LMP at 23%, down 1. And this is the kicker right here. This would have every party nervous. It had One Nation polling at 23% as well, which was plus 6%, which puts it level pegging with the LMP for the first time in history. A minor party has got up to that kind of level. So the ALP and the LMP would be looking over their shoulders now, because once that kind of polling hits, now we're not just bringing in Anthony Albanese as preferred prime minister and Susan Lee as preferred prime minister. You'd now be putting in Pauline Hanson in that category as preferred prime minister. Depending on how things are happening locally, you could find yourself in a very, very different swing of things come the next election. That was stunning. When I saw that poll, I'll show you. I'll send you a copy of the poll after the show, the one I'm reading at the moment. But I would be nervous if I was the ALP and the LMP. I'd be nervous because the split now makes it ALP and One Nation at 50-50 in two party preferred, not the ALP and the LMP. It has the ALP and One Nation at 50-50.
Here's what I think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this. And you're right about this, the ALP and the LLP should look over their shoulders and be frightened at this number. But even though we have Pauline Hanson really, really winning the nation over, let's not forget who may even decide to run. And I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, we'll see a surprise from Jacinta, which when we had the referendum, she really brought the nation together. And I think if this would be a surprise come 2 years, I think she has a very good chance of, you know, grabbing people, the right people to campaign for her and really getting out there. And who knows, we could have. I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping for we could have Jacinta Price as our next prime minister.
Imagine this for a super party. I mean, you've got Pauline Hanson and now Barnaby Joyce in One Nation. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that. What? Because Barnaby Joyce has been so strong in for the Nationals for such a long period of time, it almost seems unbelievable that he switched and joined One Nation. But imagine if, say, Jacinta Naparjimpa Price and also Warren Mundine to join One Nation, you wouldn't be able to topple that. That would be like a super party, and that kind of super party would more than likely be the balance of power at an
But
election.
what I'm talking about is if Jacinta took one and said, "Okay, I'm gonna surprise everybody by running for prime minister. This is gonna be my campaign. These are my promises." Could Anthony Albanese actually be frightened of that?
He'd be scared. He'd be nervous. That's for sure. He would be nervous because you couldn't pick four house more with household names than Anthony Albanese, and you would have four of them in that one party. I mean, Anthony Albanese is a household name because obviously he won the previous election and also was returned to office at the last election. But people don't really know what he really stands for. We know what Pauline Hanson stands for. We know what Barnaby Joyce stands for. We know what Jacinta Price stands for. And we also know what Warren Mundine stands for. So you already know right there where they're going to go, where they would go if they were to join, if they were all in One Nation.
Exactly. Here's the next question. The Albanese government's two-party preferred lead in early January has a two-party preferred lead in early January. What will this mean for the coalition, and what can they do to win majority?
well, they need to start listening to people instead of listening to their own bickering, which has been the case of late. Regarding Susan Lee, there's always been this talk of, you know, is she the right person for the job? You know, at the moment, I would probably say no, that she isn't at the moment, but I guess it's the case of, not having enough time to, because when you're behind the eight ball, especially like this, it's going to take two elections at least to get yourself back in competitive form. Because they not only did the coalition lose the last election, they lost even more seats. I think they lost 17 or so seats or something from the previous election. I'd have to check that source down. But someone has to stabilize the coalition at the moment. And Susan Lee, is trying, but Susan Lee just hasn't gotten herself out there and shown that she can be the one to take control of this. And I think that's what's hurting Susan Lee at the moment. So um, it'll take a while, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Perfect. I mean, for me, when we had Dutton, everyone was afraid of Dutton. I'm not going to repeat the names because they're quite inappropriate. But if we had Dutton, would Australia look different under him, or would we be in a much bigger mess now than we were with Albo? Because even though he was a former policeman, like he's sworn to tell the truth, but Anthony Albanese has created such a mess in this country, and we're talking not just from the referendum, but the Bondi incident. We're talking about um budget wise. We're talking about he's not able to stand in front of the press and answer questions because he seems to grit his teeth 99% of the time and walk away. He doesn't give a proper answer from what I've researched on him. I've seen videos of him. I've watched him live. I think I think it's coming to a wire where is this how Australia's going to be under him? Because he lacks the confidence to fix things. He lacks the confidence to answer the questions we're looking for.
Yeah, I would like to see a leader, no matter who it is, like a leader or an opposition leader or whatever, be straight up with people. When someone's asking a question, don't dance around it. As the rain starts to tumble down over here, by the way, as we're filming this, um, don't dance around it. Don't treat us like mugs. Just answer the question yes or no, and then explain why. Because when you start to dance around it, then people can see through the. They know. We know when they're bullshitting.
Yeah.
Pardon the language, and I'm sorry if it.
That's
I'm
right.
sorry if you get upset about that, but
That's right.
we know better. Just say yes or no, and state your reasons why. Then you'll get a lot more respect.
Exactly. So we're looking at One Nation. We're looking at the Greens. We're looking at um
The teals,
LMP. We're looking at the Teals. People,
ALP, yeah.
if you're gonna run for prime minister, now is the time. I know it's 2 years early, but now is the time to look at what this country is gonna look like under you. When, as Leon said, we need questions answered, like what's gonna happen with the submarines? Why are we wasting our time with them? Are they gonna go into? Are they gonna be used? Budget wise, this that. People are actually frightened in this country. People are actually scared. I mean, we're coming up to Australia Day. People are actually afraid to say it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that also falls in with what with the I think it might be the vilification bill or whatever it is that's going through at the moment with the guns thing. Right, there are some people who are interpreting the vilification bill along with this guns bill as saying, like, if you're going around saying Australia Day, then you could be pinged for racial vilification. No, that's not
Exactly.
the way this bill is supposed to go.
Exactly.
And I think that's the reason why this is being knocked back the way it is because no one is saying, does this mean that we can't say Australia Day without being pinged for racial vilification? They need
Exactly.
to say this straight up, yes or no. If you can't say that, then it doesn't go through and it's not going to go through.
And if the LNP are going to win majority, they're really, as you said, they're really going to have to knuckle down, speak to the public, tell us what we should hear. The thing that when I first started these podcasts, I started saying, and I still stick to my wording, is tell us what we should hear. Don't tell us what we want to hear, because when you're telling us what we want to hear, you're sugarcoating crap. Tell us, tell this country what it should hear.
And by the way, when I mentioned the election last year about the LNP losing seats, they did lose seats. It wasn't well. I think I said 17. It wasn't 17. It was actually 15. So the Labor Party gained 17 seats from that particular election. The LNP lost 15, and the Greens lost three as well. So there you go. That's the wrap on that one.
But would you agree that it's time that no matter who it is, they need to tell this country what it should hear, not what it wants to hear?
Yeah, they should. Yeah, they should tell us what they're doing instead of just dancing around like we don't need a 200,000 word essay just to say yes or no. This is what we want to do. We want your opinions on this. And
Yes,
by the way,
exactly.
the next federal election is due on or before the 20th of May 2028 or on or before the 23rd of September. So there you go. That's when the next set of elections are due to take place, anytime between May and September in 2028.
So time to get your campaigns going. Okay, next
Actually,
question.
no, you've actually got up a good point. I think you need to get your campaigns going right now, actually, because on the back of this, what happened here, I think they need to keep that in mind because how one party is reacting to it and how one party is not reacting to it. What would you do? If you're in opposition, what would you do and how would you sort that out? And then I would run with that and I would keep that in mind for a
Here's
little
what
while, just keep that and add on when the time gets closer to the election.
he's I know we're going off topic, but here's what I find disgusting is currently from what I've heard, and please fact check me if I'm wrong or right, but from what I've heard is that money and resources are being taken out of public schools and being inserted into public schools. How are kids supposed to learn under the Albanese government if there's no more funding? If you're giving private schools more money, they've got enough. Parents are paying enough to put their kids in private schools with the best teachers, with the best education, with the best outcome. Our kids who go to public school, what are they learning if they've got no resources?
I think I don't know if that's the case. I'm not sure why money would be taken from public schools to be put into private schools because the private schools they're already privately funded by other people.
Exactly.
That's the reason why there's so many uh good students and stuff like that out there. But some of the public stuff at the moment, it's getting a bad rap for reasons. Like I can give you an example, the universities at the
Mm.
moment. Why are people paying for courses about how to feel guilty as a white person?
Hmm.
What is that? That's not a part of my curriculum. And I don't even know who brought something like that in because I believe it was one of the universities, but I remember hearing it on 2GB several times where that was happening. And why is it happening when it shouldn't be happening? These guys need to be teaching what they need to. If they don't, then, well, this is what's going to happen. There's going to be students that are going to end up being slack jog yokels, as they call it in The Simpsons.
That's why I'm asking you to fact check me because I did hear this on the news on TikTok. I think one of the Green Centers, a lady, she was actually quite angry and said, "Why is money or funding being taken out of public schools into private school sectors? Like, what are our kids learning? I mean, teachers aren't being paid enough anyway in public schools. What's left to learn? You might as well just shut the public schools down and do the homeschooling thing or do the Zoom school because it's just not fair. Public schools are getting more rich stuff while the public school kids are suffering. The parents are suffering.
Well,
Like
I went to a public school and I guess I turned out as best as I could, and
me too,
obviously I tried my best, but yeah.
me too. But that's what I'm asking you to fact check me because I did
I'm
hear this,
I'm
but I
trying.
don't
I'm
know.
trying to come up with something. From what I understand, is those kind of public schools are always underfunded. You're receiving less money for the school's recommendation scheme. Now, that's I believe is what it's called, but they always seem to be underfunded for some weird reason.
Exactly. Here's what leads me to the next two questions. Here we go. Obviously, we know what's happening in the UK. The UK is about to go into a general election as we speak. But would the Governor General, with everything happening now and what happened before, would the Governor General allow for a surprise general election, and she has the power from King Charles.
Um, as long as King Charles okays it, if King Charles okays for a public or whatever it is, a general election or whatever, then they can do that. Um, but you did mention the UK election. The UK, you mentioned the
General
UK
election.
general election.
Yeah.
That's going to take place in 2029, so that's still a few years away. But right now, what's happening is, I believe, and I think I may have heard this. Local council elections are being cancelled left, right, and centre in the UK. I believe I've heard this from somewhere. I'll have to find out from my own sources because I know I've got one. I've got a few over there in the UK, but a lot of council elections are being cancelled. So it doesn't look good if you're in the UK. It doesn't look good for Carl, who's the Prime Minister of England right now,
You mean to say
whatever his
Keir
name is.
Starmer?
Carl Starmer. Yeah, that's it. Keir
Keir
Starmer. Sorry,
Starmer.
not
Yeah.
Carl. Keir Starmer. My bad. Um, but the thing is, right, he's currently sitting at 404 seats, followed by the Conservatives with 118 seats. So it's going to take a monumental from Keir Starmer for that to flip.
Hmm.
Um, it's just the whole UK at the moment in politics has gone weird. But
It's because they're under the Labour government again.
well, you can't exactly blame the Labor government for, having a thought on what they want to do. They've wanted to run this, and that's exactly what they're doing. And unfortunately, they're paying the price for it, and
Mm,
it's going to come back and haunt them big time. But the question is, will it haunt them enough to kick them out of office? Because they've got a 300 seat buffer, and no matter what you try to pull on Keir Starmer, if you're in the UK, you're not going to get anything through
mm,
because he's got what you would call a super. He's got a super majority. It's over 400, so you've got a super majority there, and not all the minor parties combined with the Conservatives have enough to even counter that.
mm.
And there's a lot of minor parties too, by the way. I had a look at that. Oof. But as
Now,
far as the Governor General goes, I can't see it happening. I know there's only ever been, I think, maybe one time in Australian history where this has actually happened, but it wasn't King Charles at the time, it was the Queen.
mm,
So she had the power and said, okay, yep, go ahead. Um, and I think that might have been was it Goth Whitlam?
yeah,
It would have been the Goth Whitlam, but I can't see that happening, and I don't see that happening. Like I said, unless some sort of monumental up happens, I can't see that happening.
because I remember seeing Governor General Sam Mostyn on the news in regards to the Bondi incident, and she said, "I have no authority, no power to dissolve Parliament. I have no authority to fire the Prime Minister." When everyone's like, "What do you mean you don't have it? You do have the power. That's why you're elected Governor General.
You have the
It's your job
authority
to
to
do."
fire. Yeah, she has the authority to fire the prime minister if she has the go ahead from King Charles, and that won't happen.
But I don't see why she's saying, "Oh, I don't, I don't, I can't fire the prime minister. On what grounds do I have? I don't have any grounds. Like, why do we have a governor general if you don't think the rules apply to you? You're getting paid a whole lot of money to do your job. The thing is, we need to do is speak to King Charles and say, listen, um, there's a huge public backlash. Can I dissolve Parliament? Would you permit me? What would you say? Like, it's just important because previous governor generals can fire prime ministers from what I've researched.
Yeah, that's true. They do if it's overwhelmingly supported by a majority of, and I believe that the way this works, I'm not sure if it's wrong. I'm not sure if it's right, and I think it might be wrong. But anyway, I'll go with what I know, what I'm thinking anyway. You would need the majority of all parties to agree on whether or not to dissolve. And at that point, it then becomes the Governor General's responsibility to inform King Charles, and then for King Charles to get back to the Governor General and say yes or no.
Mm.
I don't know if that's exactly correct. I wasn't alive when the last time this happened, but anyway,
From my Before we finish, if I'm not mistaken, again, fact check me. from what I read, that there's a petition in Australia currently. I don't know. I think he's received a lot of signatures for Albanese to step down. That is a, I think, change.org or something like that. I'm not sure, but there is a petition going around.
There might be. I wouldn't be surprised because yeah, here we go. An online petition. I'm just reading this out. All right. So, an online petition is calling on Anthony Albanese to resign. I'll just find out exactly where this poll stands at the moment because I know what you're saying here. I just got to try and find a website or something like that. There is one there is one website I'm looking at the moment. It's an online deal. It's change.org, by the way, which I believe is hosting this particular which is hosting this particular one. That usually would be the case. But even after X amount of people signed or whatever, it if it reaches a certain number, then it can be debated in Parliament. But if it doesn't get to a certain number, then it doesn't get debated. I'm not sure what that threshold is, um, it it can particularly happen. It can happen under certain circumstances.
Because shouldn't shouldn't his team say to him, look, Anthony, have you seen the change.org? This is what people are saying. This is how many signatures, blah blah. If I was Anthony Albanese, I'll be like, okay, how do I fix it? How do I change people's opinions of me? But I'm sure deep down inside he's a wonderful guy. I'm sure he is, but he's for a leader, I think there's a lot lacking. There's a lot lacking as a leader. And as you said, we need a leader. And I think with him not being here majority of the time because he's off doing something, like it's just I'm not saying I hate the guy. No, I don't dislike him, but I just feel like he's not a leader for me. And I think that change of Og would be worrying as well.
Yeah, I it is. It's really strange because the what's happened with Anthony Albanese recently have been with situations, unfortunately, that are beyond his control. Like I remember there was a situation, I think it might have been really late last year or something, where he actually got married, and then all of his stuff started happening around the day he was married. I mean, I felt bad for the bloke because,
Mm-hmm.
even when it's supposed to be the best day of his life,
Life,
it's going to
yeah,
be the worst day of his life because all this is happening somewhere else, and it can't be in two places at once. I, I can't fault him for that. By the way, congratulations
yeah.
on his
Congratulations.
marriage, by the way, and also congratulations on your marriage too, by the way.
Thank you.
But
Congratulations on first lady. We have a first lady.
but yeah, I can't fault him for that particular. I'm imagining they would have had the date well and truly planned, like the date that
Yeah.
you would have had well and truly
And the honeymoon.
planned.
But this is why Phil said to me, Bucket said, I feel sorry for him because he never had the opportunity to go on a proper honeymoon, yet he's had to come out and answer all these questions.
Yeah, that's it. I agree. I agree with Buckets, and I agree with you too, because no matter what he would try to do here, it's a no-win situation for the poor bloke. I mean, he
Yeah,
just got married. He's supposed to be celebrating his best day of his life, and unfortunately, this is happening back at home.
yeah. Like you'd think you'd bring out the deputy prime minister to answer these questions.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, he quite frankly should have, and the deputy prime minister should have been just like there answering questions straight away.
Because if he was going to go on his honeymoon, I'm sure he would have prepared the deputy prime minister and said, "Look, I'm going away on my honeymoon. I'll need you to step in as prime minister for the time being, answer these questions while I'm gone, and we'll get back and rehash them." But I think because there was no deputy prime minister, the poor guy didn't have a chance to sort of breathe in and breathe out. He was just like bang straight onto the scene, and like I felt bad because I thought the boos were really a bit much.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate the booze. I mean, I think the booing, like you're allowed to have your opinion. I get that, but
Yeah,
it's doesn't it's not supposed to. And the fact that those guys were saying that you've got blood on your hands. I mean, what did he do to deserve that? He didn't deserve that at all. So
exactly.
that was a bit over. That was a bit much. That I wouldn't say it's a bit much. That was a lot. That was too much. It went over. That comment went down like a lead balloon. I mean, he went there. I mean, granted, it was too late, and he used it basically as a photo op. But
Yeah.
um, you, sh- you I know tensions are high, but you should. He there's always going to be some person out there that goes to that level. I mean, I call that the Lydia Thorpe level because she's the kind of person that would say something like that, and she probably
Mm.
would have. But you don't say that. I mean, he did go there. He should have stuck around a bit longer, but there was no reason for him to cop that abuse.
I mean, imagine walking hand in hand with our first lady. She looked really frightened. Like she was like, "What am I?" Like she looked like really sad and really frightened. If not for her, for him, because the booze were inappropriate. What they should have done is, as you said, he was there for the photo op. A bit too late, but I think what should have happened is everyone should have just applauded him for trying to be there,
Well,
trying to.
those people who are booing him right now, they already know which way they're going to vote at the next election straight away. So you know that straight away. But
Yeah.
if I was Anthony Albanese, I wouldn't have used it as a photo op. I would have gone to the people, spoken to them one on one. I don't need these cameras around me to speak one on one. I would have had a notebook. Well, in this case, it would have been a huge notebook because there was a lot of people there asking for their opinions. What should I do? That would be the way to connect.
Mm,
If you're willing to write down these things in a book or whatever, take it back to Canberra, and this is what people are saying, then you can go on the front foot instead of on the back foot.
mm. Because
And it makes me wonder why they don't. I don't know why they don't do that.
Pauline Hanson showed up with a big bouquet. Barnaby Joyce showed up with a big bouquet.
Mm.
Josh Frydenberg showed up and spoke. Scott Morrison, his wife and two daughters came. They did a makeshift synagogue there. They went and prayed with the families. A lot of these members of parliament showed up, and Pauline was seen really emotional. And
She
someone
was
asked
really
Pauline,
angry by what had happened.
yeah, she was really crying. I cried because I was like seeing her like that. And they said to her, "What are you gonna do for your promise? And what are you gonna do?" And she said, "The first thing I would do is I would correct all the wrongs. I would sincerely apologize. I'd go and go to the synagogues. I'd do this. I'd do that. I'd change things. I'd make things better. I'd work on immigration. I'd work on this. I'd work on that."
Well, Pauline Hanson's strong point's always been immigration at the moment because the
Yeah,
way that people are coming into the country at the moment is there is a lot. Let's not kid ourselves. There is a lot, and there's a lot then probably I think it's probably more than what we really should be having at this point in time. But um, I know that's definitely Pauline Hanson's strong point. Yes, looking at immigration, and I think more looking at background checks as well. I think that
mm,
might be having a closer look at the background checks on some of these people. I mean, the way that the whole Bondi incident happened, you would have thought that that was a Hollywood movie being played out at the
exactly,
moment, but it was real life, and that should not be happening here in Australia. It shouldn't be
exactly,
happening anywhere in the world, but at least not in Bondi.
exactly.
How many people are ever going to go back to Bondi after that?
Not many, not many. But let me tell you this: we don't want someone like ICE to come here and terrorize us and turn things upside down. But like we need to work on immigration. We
Definitely,
need
there needs to be a better way to be handling immigration.
exactly. Let's look at
I don't believe there'll be a nice situation as what's happening in America right now, but I think it there'll be something like that. If Pauline Hanson was to get into power, then I imagine there would be something going down, but nothing like what ICE has been doing.
exactly. Now let's look at the final question together. Here's what I think: is this the end of ALP altogether due to public backlash? Is this Anthony Albanese's final hurrah? Is there any time left?
There's plenty of time because there's only 6 or 7 months into his second term, so he's still got 2.5 years to worry about it, to really worry about it. And I did mention this at the start. All the bad things that have happened really have happened at the start of his terms, like the
Mm,
Indigenous Voice to Parliament. That was the start of his term, and he ended up getting around that. He ended up not doing a bad job, but he ended up doing a pretty good job hammering the point that he needed to. And and obviously this incident happening early in his second term. There's still plenty of time for Anthony Albanese to figure out, what he's doing wrong and how to address it and how to, get on top of this situation because a lot of people are not going to forget, what's happening in his terms. And I think
Mm.
this one here will go down along with, say, the cost of living. The cost of living will come back to haunt Anthony Albanese big time because in his first term he promised relief on the cost of living, and unfortunately things are going up, especially electricity and rent. They're still going up, and he promised that they wouldn't, and they're still going up even to this day. So that's going to come back to bite Anthony Albanese. I think this will probably come back to bite Anthony Albanese, depending on how he handles the situation here. Um, but that could also come back to bite him as well. So
But you said 2 years, right? But if you look at it, we're now at the very beginning of 2026, which means
yes,
what he needs to do is he needs to get his cabinet and have a few meetings and say, okay, we're now in 26. We've got 2 years. But as you said, you did agree with me. Time for the campaigns to start is right now. They need to sit with him instead of saying yes to him.
you
They
were
need
the
to
one that
sit
actually
down.
came up with the idea of the campaigning. I agreed with it.
But the thing is, right, if you're going to campaign now, the Albanese government, they need to sit down with them and say, okay, well, we've made a lot of mistakes. We've made a lot of good this in the last year. We've made a lot of bad last year.
Yes, yes.
How do we begin our campaign this year? How do we turn around for people to actually believe we are worth keeping around? Because a lot, and they'll tell him, look, One Nation is rising, LMP is rising. The
I
skills
think
will
I think
come up.
more I think more the fact that One Nation's rising is probably the reason why they need to get back into it. Now how they're going to combat, because they can't combat the LMP and One Nation at the same time, because if they start to worry about that, then they're going to start making slip up. They're going to start making more slip ups.
Yeah, like for me, I'm
I
all
think
about.
we're looking at the rise of Pauline Hanson. To be honest, I think we're looking
I
at the
agree.
rise of One
I
Nation. Go
agree.
on.
I agree. But I'm a big climate person. I believe in climate change. But Anthony Albanese is sort of focusing on climate change, telling us, oh, by 2030 it'll be net zero. What you need to what the cabinet needs to focus on with him is start your campaign now and go, okay, I will fund public schools. I will put back in education. I will bring the rent down completely. I will work on the cost of living crisis. I will do this. I will do that. I promise. These are my promises, which I'll not break.
I'm more
Um,
worried about. I know the climate change thing. I believe you. I'm with you. Like I believe that climate change is real. Just a matter of how to address it. And he's hell bent on going on the net zero, which is a pipe dream. It can never happen. And even if he does that, he's going to put more businesses out of business than more businesses going in. So he's going to put more businesses out of business in order to get to it. And
and
that's
here's
a problem.
and here's my question. He wants to start building new homes and apartments without gas, just electricity. Do you know how high the electricity bill is going to be if you've got a gas stove, gas oven, and you've got electricity? Do you know how, so not gas, electricity, um, electricity stove, lights, etc. Do you know how much a house or an apartment will cost just to pay for that? Gas
And
balances it out.
I was just talking about the price of electricity too. And I think you got that the other way around, because I believe it was the start of the year when the as far as new homes being made in New South Wales, they have to be electricity, not gas.
Yes, that's what I'm supposed to, that's what I meant, which is they're
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
have
I
electricity.
knew where you were going with that, but the problem is the price of electricity at the moment. And if they're eliminating gas, guess what? The only thing you can do is use electricity, and that bill's going to be a bloody mountain to pay off too.
That's
How are
why
you going to pay? How are you going to pay to have a frigging meal? You can't.
I think they need to sit down and relook at this situation. And the only way to do it is to go to Bunnings and get yourself a barbecue with what is it, the gas thing?
A
Um,
portable gas cylinder.
yeah, and just go outside and cook your meal there, or buy a portable gas thing like chefs do in their houses, and they put a small cylinder and they use it and they cook it. But it's, as you said, bills are going to skyrocket. Just keep it how it is because it balances out everything.
Yeah.
Because you have electric stove, then you have electric oven, then you have an electric shower, then the lights. How are you going to cope? Air
Yeah. And
conditioning.
also because if everything's electricity, if everything's running electricity, what if you have a blackout? You can't eat.
Exactly.
You can't have a meal unless you've got a backup generator. And then that's going to be extreme cases where people are going to actually buy a generator because they're not exactly cheap either.
Exactly. Because you're looking at places like Hungry Jack's or Aldi or McDonald's or whatever, they've got electricity too. So if they black out, guess what? How else, as you said, how are we going to eat? How are we going to survive?
And also, they lose a hell of a lot of business for that day as well.
So I think that's another factor of looking into situations that I think I disagree with. Keep things as they are. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't break it.
Exactly. Exactly. We need a leader to say, why should we keep just electricity? Why?
Yeah.
Because we want to bring the rent up? It's already high enough as it is.
Oh, I don't know, man.
But I guess, all I'm saying is start the campaigning now, guys. Like, really think ahead. You've got 2 years because come next year is when they'll start bringing out the campaign, and then Anthony Albanese will make his announcement for the following year of the election. I know there's still a lot of time, but if you look at it, there's not really enough time because you need to really start honing in on what's important to us, which is cost of living, which is rent, which is public schools, which is climate change, which is immigration. There's a lot of things to work on, a lot of things.
It's gonna be an interesting ride, guys. We got 2.5 years. Let's see what happens.
Let's start now. Thank you so much, Leon, for joining me. I really enjoyed your company. I can't wait to do this again with you next week sometime.
It
Thank you
has
guys so
been a
much.
while since we did one of these.
I know because we just got married.
Yeah. Like I said,
Thank
congratulations, Mr.
you.
and Mrs. Anthony Albanese. I mean, Phil, sorry. There you go.
Thank you, thank you. And congrats to our Prime Minister and our First Lady. We hope you guys have a wonderful life together, full of love and happiness and laughter. Please take care of each other and let us know what you think in the comments.
Are
And
you
have
saying that about Anthony Albanese and his wife, or about you and your husband?
well, a lot of people got married last year, so I really do
uh,
wish them well. She looked incredibly beautiful, and he looked very dapper. So, congrats. And thank you for joining me. I'll be working on the next podcast today to work for next week. I'll see you guys soon. And let's hang out. Bye.
hey.